Very good morning to you this Monday morning, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, full of the joys of life, unless you're a Kildare fan or a Liverpool fan or a Meath fan. It was actually one of the best sporting weekends of all time, though. Whoa, look, there you go. Live in Technicolor. I've never done this before. How are you, Owen?
Very well, yeah. a lot at stake at the weekend. A lot of misery this Monday morning, which kind of shows that a lot was at stake during the weekend. Misery is always a good gauge of how good a weekend was, and there's plenty of it to go around.
I'm refusing to be miserable. I'm more disappointed about than embarrassed. Aston Villa lost as well. Not a great sporting weekend.
No.
Other things made up for the sport this weekend, I have to say.
At least your boys Leinster managed to get the job done. So, it's 2 out of 3 ain't bad, I guess.
Yeah.
Kildare obviously a huge disappointment yesterday.
You were at the game.
Yes, I was there. I just wanted to go just to see how bad your county was.
You were banging on about how I have to go to this game. I was like, poor Owen has to go to this game. It's going to be rubbish. Oh, there you are on info.
Oh yeah, Jesus.
He's a big lad. Well, you're a little lad, I suppose, is the main thing.
Yeah, well, there you go. I certainly couldn't line out a centre back for the Carlow team.
He was big.
Yes, all the Carlow team are big. I'm not sure how many of them are actually under 6 foot. I would say maybe 3 or 4.
Imagine they've done this without Brendan Murphy.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing.
It's almost as if they've seen the Brendan Murphy thing as kind of an element of let's prove him wrong. And he's not the enemy here or anything like that. But I think there's an element of there being an amicable departure. And they kind of use that in a positive way, where they're like, you know what, we're gonna prove to Brendan that we can survive without him, and not in a nasty way or anything like that. But it was just an extra incentive for them, which they've clearly channeled into something very, very positive, because they're an unbelievably united bunch. It was an explosion of emotion at full time yesterday. The Carlow supporters travelled in numbers. They outnumbered Kildare support by about 2-1 yesterday, I think, just judging from the kind of levels of what I actually heard from the terraces. And yeah, it's a roller coaster now. They've got a lot of momentum, and Carlow versus Laois in the Leinster semi-final. Not too many people would have seen that coming at the start of the year. And Laois obviously completely going in the right direction as well under very, very good new management. That's going to be a very interesting game, and I would give both sides, whoever wins that game, every chance of winning the qualifier after they lose to Dublin and getting into the Super 8.
Longford's reward is a trip to Croke Park to face the Dubs, who were absolutely amazing in the first 20 minutes when the game... I mean, they weren't. It was against Wicklow, and Wicklow didn't go defensive, so I don't know really what everybody expected.
No, like Dublin are just completely ruthless. And they have to be. If you want to earn your place, as it says actually on one of the back pages in front of me, you have to be completely ruthless. You have to kill your man. You have to treat every single Wicklow player like they're Lee Keegan. If you don't do that, then you're going to be dropped. And it's why they are the best team in the country. It's why they're one of the best teams of all time. Is a standard beyond all belief. Perhaps a standard we've never seen before within a camp.
These games do them absolutely no favours. They don't know. They don't learn anything. It's like it's a training. It's a run out. It's like match day preparation, but not actually having a proper match at the end of it. And it's going to be the same, more than likely, in the semi-final. And that's not to take anything away from Longford, the fact that game will be in Croke Park. I mean, if the game was in Glennon Brothers Pearse Park, then maybe there would be an opportunity for us to kind of see a bit more about this Dubs team. But there isn't. And so, I don't know. The whole thing is a bit of a farrago.
I think it does do them favours. I think that Jim Gavin can look at his team and say, we can battle the team off one another. We don't have to worry about the opposition because we're going to beat whoever we're coming up against in Leinster. But this is just good training, and we can actually pinpoint when we want to peak. And we need to peak first in and around the last weekend of July, when they're going to be playing the Ulster winners in Croke Park.
The Super 8s.
Exactly, the first weekend of the Super 8s. That'll be against, you presume, either Monaghan or Donegal at this point. So they need to peak for that. And then after that, really, I mean, as soon as they win that game, which they probably will, because it'll be in Croke Park as well, and they haven't really struggled against Ulster opposition in Croke Park, then, they can take their foot off the pedal once again, and they can peak again for a semi-final.
Who do you blame for Liverpool losing?
Lars Karius, obviously.
What about the manager who didn't buy a good goalkeeper the entire time that he's been there?
Well, we're talking about what happened within the 90 minutes.
Yeah, but ultimately, responsibility for that ends up... Klopp is like, I've got 2 crap goalkeepers. Hopefully one of them's going to be all right. No, buy a good one.
But these are professional football players. This is a professional goalkeeper. What he did on Saturday isn't becoming of an amateur goalkeeper. It's as simple as that. It's not...
Which of the 2 mistakes is the more egregious?
See, this is an interesting... I heard the lads actually chatting about that yesterday, and apparently, I didn't read the column, but Joe cited Stephen Hunt on the show yesterday, and his piece that it was actually the second one that's worse because it's less bizarre. It's just... The first one was just weird. it was one of those things where he just rushes it. He just isn't thinking, and it's body before mind, all that sort of stuff. Whereas the second one is kind of your bread and butter. And I'm starting to come around to that way of thinking that Stephen Hunt might actually be right. The second one was the more egregious, but there's no question that the second one happened because of the first one. You know, his head was completely gone at that point.
Was his head not gone because of the concussion?
Well, there's that as well, which I didn't see until afterwards.
I think that's all nonsense.
Well, I mean, Sergio Ramos, though, born winner, absolute born winner. You would take him on your team every single day. Like, obviously the old John Giles phrase of he would kill his grandmother for the team and stuff. There would be no grandmothers alive if Sergio Ramos went around to different teams.
Well, here's what's coming up on the show. We'll run through this really quickly. We're talking about Karius and Bale. Bale at the back of the bus. Bale didn't apparently get said hello to by Zidane for 3 full hours afterwards. Like, oh, what a travesty. Poor Gareth Bale, having just put in the greatest performance of his life. Anyway, we talk Carlow Kildare around midday 45. Tip have survived. Shane Stapleton will be in with us a little bit later on. The Gestapo of the hurling fraternity. If you aren't into it, then
we're calling this slot GAA Stapo, or as the Dubs call it, Gas Stapo.
Hey, and then also we're going to talk about Leinster's amazing season, the finale of which had a few bits of nice skill from their tyros. A beautiful pick-up after he collected his own kick from Jordan Armour, and also a nice little bit of footwork and acceleration from Joey Carberry. Was that his very last act in a Leinster jersey? I hope not, but it looks like Johan van Graan has been quietly seducing him. They've met, they've had coffee. He's like, this is my plan. What are your plans?
And is Van Graan a more impressive man than Stuart Lancaster? I mean, Stuart Lancaster can drink coffee too. He can sit down with people too and talk about his plans as well. Yeah,
but Van Graan also is there with the ghost of Joe Schmidt on his shoulder. There was a third party in that relationship. Anyway, time for the papers.
OTB AM in association with Air. Get Air Sport free with Air Broadband.
All right, let's bring you through the morning newspapers. We're going to start with the Irish Independent, and the back page there is a leaping Michael Ryan. Ryan's leap of faith as Tip find their fight. Think about this weekend, right? Good golf in that Rory is involved all the way through to the end. Sam Bennett wins his third and final stage in the Giro, which has one of the most remarkable ends to any of those big professional races that we've seen over the last 15 years, when Chris Froome rides away from everybody. Was it Friday he did it?
Friday.
Thursday or Friday anyway. So if it's Friday, I'm claiming it as part of the weekend. So that's definitely all worth watching. We had a gold medal from Arthur Lanigan O'Keefe, which barely makes the back page of the and silver from Natalia Coyle. We had unbelievable hurling in football in that there were proper shocks in the football. They're not really shocks like a 2-1 team winning or Carlow winning, but hammering Kildare really, because they absolutely hammered them. In the hurling, you had Tipperary given the last rites on television. I don't know, you probably didn't see this, but
Sherlock apparently
effectively said they're dead. This is it. They're finished, not just today, but for the rest of this is the end of the road for this team. And then by full time, it's like, well, actually, maybe Tipperary are back in it. I think Tipperary now are probably second favourites for the All-Ireland if you're looking at that properly after that performance, because they have the firepower and they have the fitness now from the players coming back. And you've got the Champions League and you've got the rugby, and all in all, it's potentially one of the biggest. Oh, and the Cavs, which we haven't even mentioned this. LeBron James last night rescued the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they won in Game 7 in Boston against the Celtics to go through to the finals, where probably they're going to get beaten, but who knows? Best sporting weekend of all time?
Yeah, you've really made a case for it there. I did say earlier on that we were maybe lacking a big fight, that an Irish person in a big fight would have been what really would have been the cherry on the cake here. But other than that, it was amazing. It was absolutely... Well, hold on a minute. Natalia Coyle and Arthur Lanigan O'Keefe had to pull out their... had to, partake in fencing over the weekend, so maybe that's kind of...
Their guns.
Yeah,
their guns out.
Exactly, yeah. So it was a gunfight and a sword fight, so we got 2 different fights there. It was an unbelievable weekend. What I'm starting to think now is that... Well, not what I'm starting to think. What I know already is that this is going to be the GAA summer of all time, the best one, and it is going to continue on this trend for the next few years. The changes that have occurred, have made this thing so much better that you're not just depending on the likes of a Carlow yesterday to give you some sort of good news story from the weekend. The hurling championship is going to deliver week after week after week. That game now in the next round of the Munster Hurling Championship, which is between Tipperary and Waterford, is humongous. Just like we were building up yesterday's Tipperary against Cork as this massive do or die match. All these games are now seemingly do or die, despite the fact that they're not really. But the ultimate goal is that you will get knocked out of Munster, you'll get knocked out of the entire championship if you don't get into the top three.
Waterford have had disaster with injury, so I think that's probably going to...
Suspension as well.
I think that they're going to be a bit screwed for that game because of the various injuries that they had yesterday, plus the two that had gone into the game. So
the World Cup hasn't even started yet, Ger. This is going to be the best summer of all time. If Ireland were in the World Cup, there would be no question. There wouldn't be any other summer that could even come anywhere close to this one if they were in the World Cup, but they're not. So there will only be an argument about it. It's going to be it's going to get even better.
Yeah, or we're not though. You had to bring that up, didn't you?
Well,
it'll spoil the mood.
You have to bring.
Oh, what a great
down.
weekend! What a great weekend!
You have to bring
but we're
down
not in the World Cup, Ger.
Lower expectations, Ger.
I mean, that's basically like saying, yeah, what about Saipan? So the Indo, loads of great stuff in that today. A lot of match reports, a lot of analysis and reaction. Next up is the Times Ireland edition. Carlow provide the inspiration there on the back page of the Times. New chapter in Longford's fairy tale as Connaughton's team secure semi-final place against Dublin and exceptional chance at World Cup. This sure, Lancaster going all in on Ireland's chances at the World Cup. We have an exceptional chance, and he also goes further by saying that he says that of all the players I've coached, Johnny Sexton is probably the best, which is pretty high praise. I didn't realise it, but they were talking about so everybody's like, oh, James Ryan never lost a game, right? But about 5 or 6 of them had unbeaten seasons. Sexton didn't lose a game. Tyke Furlong didn't lose a game. Robbie Henshaw was mentioned as not having lost a game. James Ryan as well, which is unbelievable when you think about it.
It's outrageous. It is outrageous. It's like there is no more words left to say about James Ryan and that cohort of players. Just invincible. It is one of the great rugby seasons we've ever seen. Everybody else who's not from Leinster, myself included, it just looks on this team with pure envy at this point and admiration, really, more than anything else. It was a sublime game as well on Saturday. Really enjoyable from a neutral perspective. They're just a phenomenal team. How can anybody catch them within the next 12 months? Well, it is a Joey Carberry
take their best players.
That's what might occur, but it's not really. It's one player, and Jordy Murphy. So there's 2 pretty good players.
And Issa's gone as well.
And Issa, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So that is quite a serious stripping of talent.
Karl Marx will be proud.
Yeah, it's the communist at the head of the RFU.
That was the first line in the. What was his book again? I shouldn't have started saying this, but out at the Communist Manifesto, that's the first line apparently is Joey Carberry to Munster.
On to the Irish Times next. Now, Sewa lifting trophy, the highlight of my season, that's Leo Cullen, and then O'Neill hoping to learn more about options. This is the fact that Ireland are playing France tonight in a friendly. So, Monday, we all know about the Monday carryovers. Ireland playing France in the Stade de France, going back to the scene of the crime for the second time, obviously. We were there in the Euros, it was the first time we played France. And then also Carlow on the front of the Irish Times Sports section there as well. Tipperary alive and kicking. Tipperary are alive and kicking. And we'll talk more about this with Stapo a little bit later on, but there was a bang of Tyrone against Dublin in 2005. Is it the second year they win the All-Ireland? Is that the one that they have the complete remedial situation, or is it 2008? Is it 2008 through the qualifiers?
2008 through the qualifiers. 2005, is that Mulligan's goal? The goal? I can't remember.
No, I think maybe it is 2005.
Because 2008 obviously is the record of games played to win a championship.
Yeah.
So that's definitely through the back door.
There was definitely a situation where...
And sure, yeah, they win Ulster in 2005, beating... Or do they? Armagh and Croke Park.
Yeah, Armagh beat them.
Armagh beat them, yeah, so I don't know. I can't remember.
One of the years. Tyrone had to completely recast our team, a bunch of positional switches, a bunch of players kind of finally finding form, and you're thinking, is this what's happening here with tip game, and it's like, okay, everybody's complaining about it, but actually in the second half, they put players in different positions. They decide to go. A lot of people saying there's no tactical element to the change in the second half, but I'm not sure I fully agree with that. When we get Shane to talk to us a little bit later on about that. Then the Examiner, staying alive. Actually, we have a different headline. Sore point, Rebels let struggling Tipperary wriggle off the hook, and then staying alive, Tip rescue, crucial point in Munster Hurling Classic is the different cover that we have here. So the Examiner do that sometimes, more localised coverage depending on where you are. So I did feel like there was Cork letting tip off the hook when they could have killed him, and they could have just been proper zombie.
Yeah, is that one thing that this Cork team is lacking, is that killer instinct. Be interesting to see what Stapo thinks of that later on. But maybe there's just a bit of youthful innocence still remaining in that Cork team. A bit more of the killer Cork instinct is required.
The Mail, tribal intent, go away, send the cats packing. More hurling analysis coming in just a couple of minutes' time. The Irish news for you in colour this morning. Donegal advances, Oaks grow. I mean, a 6-point defeat in Ulster is growth from a Derry perspective. I'm not sure it is. And then Triumph and Rail 7-1 to land historic 4-timer is the back page of the Racing Post. And then A Star is Born, Alpha Centauri puts on a stellar show in the 1,000 Guineas to give Jessica Harrington a first classic.
They lead with the Dubs on the back of the Herald this morning. Earn your place reads the headline. Gavin's warning for Stars as Dubs blast Wicklow. 425 to 111 was the final score there yesterday. An incredible result. Although, they did beat the spread actually. 23-point win for Dublin yesterday. The spread was 22. The bookies are always right. On the back page of the Mirror, it's all systems go and all systems mow. So Manchester United are leading the scramble apparently for £120 million Gareth Bale, who turns 29 this summer, clearly not happy at Real Madrid. And Salah vows to make up for his final injury agony by getting fit for World Cup battle. I think FIFA should just intervene and WADA should just intervene and say, Mo Salah, take all the drugs you need to heal that shoulder.
Yeah.
Here is, whoever's the head of WADA should just hand deliver all the corticosteroids that exist in the world and say, inject yourself, Mo, we need you.
Yeah.
On the back page of the Star, it says, shock and roll, Carlow and Longford upset Leinster Giants. You've got United leading chase for Bale. Karius says, I'm so sorry. And Michael Ryan says, Tip will fight to the very end. On the back page of the Sun, then, it's that same picture from Carlow. Carlow and behold, Turlow says, bring it on. Well, you've got France versus Ireland preview as well there, saying, or Seamus Coleman saying, I feel fine. Seamus is all set for the French test. Moving then finally to some of the UK back pages. There is Chris Froome. Good old Chris Froome.
Yay.
Giro d'Italia champion. The first British cyclist to win the Giro, which I didn't realise. That's quite the achievement for Chris Froome. Congratulations, Chris, from everybody here at Off the Ball.
Triple crown.
On the front page of the Daily Telegraph sports section, England must wield the axe. That's Geoffrey Boycott calling for Bayliss to go after first test humiliation at Lords. Yeah,
that was Pakistan, who obviously beat Ireland as well. Right, let's move on. We're going to talk rugby now. Here is Johnny Sexton explaining why he decided to go for the try with James Lowe instead of taking the 3 points before half-time in Saturday's win.
Because you celebrated the try like no other that I've seen you in the past. You always jumped onto the head of James Lowe. There seemed to be a real feeling that it was a key moment in the game.
I think that just shows what I think of James Lowe. It was look, we in big games and big finals, you know, you got to try and score tries to win. You know, if we go in at half time and it's 17-11, you know, it's a one score game. Whereas if you score a try, you know, we've done it other times this season. I remember Glasgow away, we did it. There's other games, England obviously in stoppage time. The lad, I wasn't on the pitch, but the lads scored just before half time. It's a massive impact on the game, and obviously then straight after half time we had quite a simple penalty, and we decided to go for the scrum and really try and put the foot on the throat. And you know, we had a good move set up and we just got the ball stripped from us. So it's all outcome based. Your decision's only as good as the outcome, but we're delighted that you know, some of the decisions paid off today.
Andy Dunn, good morning to you.
Hi Ger, how are you?
I think from their perspective it was important that they did this double, because there's a kind of sense of deflation if you win the European Cup and then don't back it up a couple of weeks later, or the following week, or the following week and the week after, as it is in this case. Just in previous years when they won the European Cup and they've been beaten, it's been like, well, that was just a little kind of, I wish they'd managed to see that out there, and they did.
Yeah, Owen Redden spoke a few weeks back about the hurt he felt losing to Munster a week after a Heineken win, and it does sit with these players. They do have serious issues with losing finals. McIntyre spoke on Saturday, you know, surmising would it really hurt them if they lost, having won Europe, and I suppose we were surmising, we weren't sure. The way they played on Saturday, I was surprised by. I thought they were fatigued going into the game. I thought they were going to be more tired. I thought they were just going to try and hang in there with Scarlets and squeeze it with penalties. But again, they stepped up to the mark, you know, brilliantly.
Yeah.
I don't know where they got the energy levels from. At the tail end of the season, we watched their warm up. they started the warm-up at about 5:43 for a 6 o'clock kickoff. And to me, that just showed they were literally trying to conserve every last ounce of energy they had, and just try and bring whatever energy levels they could to the game just for that 80-minute period. So Scarlets were warming up from about 5:10.
Yeah.
So, they literally tried to just conserve as much energy as possible.
It worked pretty well for them. Let's talk about Jordan Larmour, because this time last year, I don't think anybody really understood exactly what Jordan Larmour was. And over the last few months, there's been a sense that, well, okay, he's capable of showing us in flashes exactly. That's it. His debut for Ireland, winning the European Cup, and then with the European Cup and the Pro 14, that's himself and Porter the whole way through the season. Not a bad year for them, really.
Yeah, it's an amazing picture to see it like that.
But the flash of genius is the thing, that it was great to see that it hasn't come out of him in any way. That he was getting the ball in space in the last couple of weeks. He was getting the ball in no space in the last couple of weeks, and you would kind of see him accelerate into the contact, but it was still the contact and he was still coming down, and you're like, okay, that's just what's going to happen. The opposition gets tape and they work him out, and then boom.
Well, yeah, I mean, they all analyse each other to the nth degree now. So, but I actually think the way Leinster have played in previous weeks, where Larmour was running into traffic, that was more indicative of the Leinster game slowing down a bit, and I think the engine wasn't purring as we've come to expect. And I think when he got the ball, there were no soft shoulders to attack. There was no space being created for him on that inside. There was a lot more space created on Saturday, and then I think that little bit of magic he has, we saw it with Carberry too when he set up that last try, Jack Conan's try. It's so important that these players don't get it coached out of them, because it's very, very easily done in modern rugby. It can be a joyless profession at times on a weekly basis. The amount of physical contact they're going through, the amount of preparation and analysis.
Well, if he'd knocked it on, right?
Yeah.
There's very few coaches in the world who go, that's okay, do it next time, get it right.
Absolutely.
Most coaches are like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Who do you think you are?
But then again, it's lovely to see that a guy who's, again, is so young and new to the scene had the confidence to try it.
Yeah.
How hard is that?
It's extremely hard at the pace he was running. It's okay at a slowed down. The only it's obvious comparisons to O'Driscoll, and I think we've seen Ringrose do it maybe once as well, but there's not many others can do it. Shane Horgan, I had heard a playback on the Sky Sports commentary, and they had referred to, that's Horgan in his prime, and he just laughed. He said, I could never do that. Which I never saw him do either at 6'4", and certainly not travelling at that speed. And he had a superb career and decorated career. But it's just really nice to see young players in an Irish setting on the tail end of such a successful year, but having the confidence to do that in a cup final. When, like you said, if he was to slow it down and assess the risk of picking it up one-handed full pace, maybe in a couple of years he won't be doing that, because life will have beaten him down, but hopefully not.
Is it better than the try against Munster?
No, I don't think so. I think the amount of work he had to do in front of him in the Munster game was he had a little more work to do, but probably in terms of being opportunistic, in terms of reading the situation where he caught the ball facing in the opposite direction, but it did seem like he had the awareness that if he kicked infield, he knew there was space there. That split-second decision making, that augurs well.
Yeah, and it's a bigger stage, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Feels like a cup final.
It wasn't at Christmas. Everybody in Munster was like way down with Turkey at that point.
Yeah. That was their excuse.
Yeah.
You mentioned Joey Carey's bit of magic. I was delighted for him as well, because obviously he's been under a bit of pressure, and by all accounts the constant talk about him, which we're obviously part of feeding, has been weighing him down, but he didn't play like it when he comes off the bench, and it would be easy for that. Like, again, his form hasn't been amazing while all this has been going on, but there hasn't been huge opportunities for him, so it was great that everybody could see this is why there is such talk about him. A little quick acceleration and then a beautiful pass inside, and suddenly Jack Conan is racing free to score.
Well, he can do things that other out-halves can't do. And while Ross Byrne has been favoured ahead of him Ross Byrne couldn't do what Joey did in that split second, and actually Johnny Sexton can't do it either. It's just not what Johnny's strengths are. His strengths are very different, but that capacity to stand up an international centre 1-on-1, he feinted, he delayed, and then he had a change of pace. It was sublime, and his pass back inside was, I think, could have been called for forward, but it was his awareness of where the support runners were. I mean, lots of guys are explosive enough in midfield to suss out a little bit of space and create it for themselves. There are people who can do that. There are very few who can do that and then convert that line break into a score. And almost always his conversion rate for line breaks in terms of what actually come into goes directly to being a score or an assist for a score. He did it in the Fiji game back in November, where he did a very sharp little line break and it resulted directly in a try. I was delighted because he's in danger of falling between stools. He's in danger of, is he a fullback, is he an out half? I think he's very much an out half, and I'd love to see him continue there, where we're all speculating about, but I'd love to see him get more time at 10.
Let me play you this. It's Johnny Sexton talking about the situation with Dave afterwards.
Yeah, look, I think he's surrounded by some good people with his dad, and I think with the management here have looked after him, and he's been able to call on some experienced guys as well to look for some advice. But look, I have felt from with all the speculation, sooner from his point of view and from everyone's, I'm sure the sooner a decision is made, the better for everyone involved. And he's obviously a teammate and friend first and foremost. He's competition as well.
You'd be delighted to see him go.
I just said that there as a joke. Look, he's whoever he ends up with. I hope it's here, but whoever he does end up with, he'll be a great asset for wherever he ends up. He's obviously so talented and so versatile, and he's got a little bit of everything. You saw the footwork he did for the try, and that's what he's capable of. So wherever he ends up, like I said, he's going to be a massive asset.
It's such a weird story, isn't it? Like, it's such a weird thing that this exists in Irish rugby, that we're like...
I think in hindsight, if Schmidt and Nucifora maybe could do it differently, and maybe there was no leak of how that got out. I mean, if it was done behind closed doors, it'd been a lot neater for everybody. My own view is that he should stay in Leinster, and despite the fact he won't get as many games at 10, he will. Johnny is not going to be playing every game next year. I think he's got the capacity to do what he did on Saturday on a regular basis. His first European start at 10 for Leinster was about 2 seasons ago, against Montpellier. It was either against Racing Club or against Montpellier in a group game, and he beat 11 defenders in his first ever game starting as a 10. And while that might not be your number one role as an out half, your job is to distribute to others. If you've got a guy in that scenario who can beat 11 players on a one-on-one basis, you're going to create so much for your team. And I think what I mentioned previously there was that he doesn't just make line breaks that don't result in anything.
Yeah.
The play never breaks down after he makes a line break. He almost always creates a link up or an assist for a try. And the way defences are so well tuned now, a guy who can do that and a guy like Armour out wide who can do that, they're invaluable. And I think patience, learn from Johnny again. He's still only, what is Joey? 20?
He's 22, he'll be 23 in November.
You're probably going, Johnny didn't start for Leinster until he was about 25, 26.
Are we forgetting about Johnny in terms of the way it can go in terms of having that person behind him? Because Johnny Sexton is going to be Ireland's starting out half in the World Cup. When you think about it from a Joe Schmidt perspective, maybe he wants Johnny Sexton to keep upping his game because he's got Joey Carbery, he's got one of the best out halves in the Northern Hemisphere chasing him down. Have we forgotten about this angle entirely, that maybe it's best for Johnny Sexton if Joey Carbery stays at Leinster?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't really been discussed, but he did mention it in his interview. I mean, he's naturally enough, he's going to feel a little bit of pressure when a guy can do that behind him. So it's probably a really good way of looking at it, yeah, from Joe's point of view. Although it doesn't appear he is looking at it like that. He's very much looking at, and I think at this stage now it's become a battle of wills. And I'd be surprised if Joey doesn't move on, because Joe tends to get what he wants.
Yeah, not always necessarily the right thing though, you know.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's the right thing. I think Joey Carberry should stay in Leinster. Yeah.
I think, anyway, it's a story that
Go around and around about it, and I would like to see.
It looks like this week it'll be decided.
Some closure
Everybody's
on it.
talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting that there were papers are reporting that Van Graan actually has met him and has made the pitch from Munster's perspective. Like, I don't know what Van Graan's attacking philosophy is. I don't know if he's gonna continue to be encouraged to beat defenders. You would hope that that's what Van Graan is sitting down and saying, okay, this is how we're going to play, this is what our style is, this is how I see you fitting into that. You know, and I'm not guaranteeing you first choice. If Tyler Blandall comes back, it's a competition, and whoever wins. But
yeah, well, you'd like to think it won't be coached out of him, but lots of coaches really want their 10 to be an executive guy on the field, to be very cool, calm and collected, and to use everyone else around him to the best degree, and very often with prescriptive coaching and patterned rugby, your 10 isn't given the green light to just be an attacking force himself. I think that would be a terrible shame if that was the case with Joey Carberry. Bowden Barrett gets given that green
Bowden
light.
Barrett keeps getting mentioned, like in dispatches from Leinster when they're talking about what they see in Joey Carberry's future, and it's like, we're going to let a player like that go?
Yeah.
No way.
They shouldn't. Graham Henry came over to Leinster a couple of years ago, and in pre-season apparently just earmarked Joey Carberry within minutes and said, look no further than him, lads. He was in an advisory capacity with Leo, and it was before the arrival of Lancaster, and he immediately said, build your game around a guy like that. And that shows the New Zealand attitude to a guy of his talent.
There's your 10 for the next decade, is what he said. He's like, I know, we've got to send him down to Munster because they couldn't get their shit together to get their own 10, basically.
Stop looking at me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay, we've only got 5 minutes left here, Andy. We've got to get through a couple of key things for you. Adrian Barry was saying that did he say it was the greatest sports team in the world potentially ever? A
little bit of hyperbole there, maybe.
There might have been a few sherries at lunchtime. It's like Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls, the Barcelona team of Pep Guardiola. There's a few that are up there.
Belichick's Patriots probably
Belichick's
better.
Patriots. Certainly the first one that won the first three. But are they even the best Leinster team? There's definitely a question of whether or not the first team. Here's an incredible team we've never seen the like in any sport possibly. Superb day.
What time was that? Post-match?
Post-match.
Yeah, okay.
After the trophy celebration.
Had a few beers, maybe.
You get I was thinking about it afterwards, though, because obviously he got a bit of blowback from people on Twitter, as you do.
Yeah.
But the first team is the first team, right? And they climb the mountain first, and so therefore everybody who comes afterwards, there is a path worn for them. Plus, the first team had Rocky Elsom, and Rocky Elsom, it's like that Rocky Elsom is potentially one of the greatest seasons that anybody's ever had in any sport ever.
Yeah, I think
since we're going with hyperbole here,
I think he got 12 Man of the Match awards in 15 European games, something like that. Are they the greatest? Leinster team is probably a fairer question.
They're pretty close to it.
To tone down from Adrian's quote, I think it's a fairer argument to ask, are they the best Leinster side? I think I would say they're the best Leinster squad. I don't think Leinster have ever had that many internationals followed by that many really good near internationals next in line. They used 55 players in the Pro 14 this year. It's an outrageous amount of players to be able to call on, and very few of those people let them down on any occasion. So even when you reflect on, have there been many kind of individually poor performances across the whole breadth of a season? There's probably one or two you could recall, but it's difficult. I think without doubt they've got the biggest and strongest overall squad that Leinster have ever assembled.
Yeah.
But are they the greatest starting 15? I'm not sure.
The team that wins against Leicester in 2009, the back line is Chris Whittaker at 9, Sexton at 10, Luke Fitzgerald at 11, Darcy and O'Driscoll at 12 and 13, Shane Horgan at 14, and Ethan Nasewa at fullback. That's a shit hot team.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty incredible lineup. When you hear it like that.
On the bench is Rob Kearney and Gervin Dempsey. Sean O'Brien also on the bench, Devin Toner on the bench.
Yeah. So I think, we probably, if we were to pick, put the two sides from Saturday out together and see who would you pick from that, I wouldn't venture too far away from that back line you just announced.
Yeah, now it is Johnny Sexton as a young player who hasn't yet reached the level that he's at. That Johnny Sexton is probably not a million miles ahead of where Ross
Johnny
Byrne or
Sexton
somebody is.
wouldn't have started either had Felipe got injured. And to his great credit, nailed the drop goal from the halfway line and just owned that final in a way you'd never have expected a guy just coming in. So he laid down his marker in a very, very certain and definitive way. In 09, and it's other than that though, I don't think you wouldn't be dropping Darcy and O'Driscoll either, would you?
No, definitely not. The front three is Cian Healy, Bernard Jackman, Stan Wright. It's Leo Cullen and Malcolm O'Kelly in the second row, and then it's Rocky Elsom, Shane Jennings and Jamie Heaslip. So it's pretty close.
Yeah, very. If hearing it read out like that, I'd actually say they're probably a stronger side.
Yeah, sorry Adrian.
Maybe he was referring to that team. Maybe he was looking at the Hall of Fame and was like, this Leinster team is fantastic.
Pretty sure he said ever in the world.
He did, yeah. Ever. Apparently Stephen Jones, I never read Stephen Jones. I'm blocked by him on Twitter, so I don't know what the hell he said, but apparently Saracens are better than Leinster.
Yeah, he blocked a friend of mine on Twitter as well who took him to task. Quite how he arrived at that 3 weeks after they got hockeyed by Leinster in the European quarter-final is an interesting one.
Good man, Stephen Jones.
Yeah. Well, I suppose he's got to put stuff in print. But Saracens are an excellent side, but I can't agree that
the bit where they play each other is kind of a decisive.
Yeah, particularly that was 3 weeks ago. I mean, if it was a year ago, and you could say, well, back then Leinster were at a different level. It was 3 weeks ago, so he's wrong.
Yeah. All right. Was there one other thing that we need to talk about, or was that it? That was it. An amazing season. We kind of take it for granted when it gets to this good.
Yeah, well, it's. I don't think we've never had a season where we've won.
No, everything.
Everything, yeah. No. It's maybe our best season ever, as Adrian Barry might say.
One final point. Everybody's talking about. I made this earlier about James Ryan never having lost a game, but it was an unbeaten season for Johnny Sexton, for Tyke Furlong, for Robbie Henchon. There was somebody else. Apologies, whoever they were mentioning, but somebody else was pointing that out from Leinster.
They didn't actually lose a game.
Yeah.
Okay.
So whenever they played, the team won.
Yeah.
In all the games that they played in, including for Ireland. So
yeah, that's pretty special.
So not bad at all.
Yeah, an invincible year.
Good stuff. Nice. Great to have you with us.
Thanks, Chair.
All we have to do now is roll over the Aussies in 3 tests, and well, then this is definitely rugby country.
Yes.
Shane Stapleton's outside, so we can bring that up to him in a minute. Thanks a million, Andy.
Cheers, Chair.
See you again real soon. Now, Tommy Walsh was in Pearse Park yesterday. He was very impressed by what he saw from Galway.
All throughout the game, Galway won the breaks and bossed Kilkenny physically. How worrying is that from a Kilkenny point of view?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't really agree a whole lot with that. They're a big physical team. I thought both teams went at it, hammer and tongs. Now, the thing with it was, Galway, they're all, 6'1", 6'2". So when they go full at it versus a team that's that bit smaller going full at it, you're probably, if you're on your game, are going to win that. So I thought I was so proud of the young players from Kilkenny. They gave it socks. They were standing back from no one, but just they came up against a better team today, and Dahi Burke was inspiration. Pádraig Mannion, these are the guys that I thought won the All-Ireland for Galway last year, because when the rest of the team saw them fighting like dogs, especially when the game was in the balance, when the game was there to be won last year, these guys stood up. And I was wondering, would they do it again this year? What I saw today, I got my answer, because they were inspirational. Even to a lad sitting up in the stand, it was mad to go out and play,
Yeah, so there you go. That's Tommy Walsh speaking with Oisín after a bit of a paddling from Galway against Kilkenny, as you predicted, Shane, on the hurling show. Friday afternoons on offtheball.com, on offtheball.com, on youtube.com/offtheball. So you got that one right.
Yeah, what's rare is wonderful.
There you go. They were, I think the big question we all had after the league was, what's going on here? It's hard for us to tell whether or not they're going to be at the same level as last year, and it turns out they are at least at that level.
Yeah, there's something very process driven about them. Every position they just seem to be, that makes sense. Whereas, we'll probably come on to Tipperary.
We will.
Tip against Limerick, you look at the team and you're going, it was named and you're going, what's going on here? He's never played there. With Galway, everything seems to make sense. They've got pace, throughout the team. They've got power throughout the team. And actually, there's a quote of Sergio Ramos about them as well, because they don't mind leaving one on either. They at times bullied Kilkenny yesterday. That spine of Daithí Burke, like, what a full-back. Unbelievable. Grode McInerney, just a powerhouse. And both of them could have been sent off. I don't know if you saw the one time that Kilkenny got behind. And Kilkenny really struggled for scores. They got 3 scores from play in the entire game. Like, that's how un-Kilkenny is that. But the one time they got through in the first half, Luke Scanlon soloed through brilliantly, and Daithí Burke just came out and threw his body at him. It's the sort of thing that you'd see in wrestling back in the day.
Should have been a red card, was it?
I think so, yeah. And I mean, you know...
This is the penalty.
This is the penalty, yeah.
And totally, it was a clear red card.
Yeah, there's an element of playing on the edge, and there's an element of, in hurling, of just get up and play on. But at the same time, like, he threw his body... I'd love to have Daithí Burke on my team.
Of course, and he got away with it, and so therefore it was exactly the right thing to do.
Yeah. And in the second half then, Grode McInerney, who had been yellow carded in the same incident. Actually, this is an interesting one I found, that Daithí Burke absolutely pulverised Luke Scanlon for that penalty. And then the camera cuts over him back, and then you see Liam Blanchfield, who's about 6'3". He's down on the ground looking up at the Galway defenders.
And somebody else got booked as well.
Well, that was I presume that was Grode McInerney who did that. I couldn't see it on the replay. But basically, Galway went out and roughhoused Kilkenny to some degree there, and nobody from Kilkenny said, well, right, I'm going to take the law into my own hands here. They just kind of took it.
It's kind of a thing that's manager-driven, though, isn't it, when you have this sort of attitude towards roughing the opposition up? And Kilkenny have been well able to do this under Brian Cody, so why wasn't this Kilkenny team able to go toe-to-toe with Galway on that level?
Because they're not as big as them. Like, if you think...
It's just a physical thing, simple as that.
Maybe it's a physical thing, maybe it's just you're being sent backwards in general play.
Tommy Walsh isn't a big man. I mean, he was well able to, you know, I suppose that was kind of more dark arts rather than actually roughing up.
He played on the edge a few times. Remember that famous game? It was actually Galway's first game in Leinster in 2009. Tommy Walsh was famously playing on the edge, and that's where kind of that came from.
But just reading back, when before one of the road shows last year, I was reading back match reports in the time, and it was like there was massive criticism of Tommy Walsh at the time.
Yeah.
Like, it was insane kind of stuff when you look back at it. But I think that Kilkenny team had a bunch of very strong physical men as well. He was even talking about it, like, you know, Jackie, JJ, Henry Shefflin could absolutely hammer you if you were going to get in his way as well.
7 debutants the last day, so...
I think it's not manager driven, I think it's player driven, and there's too many young lads in that team. When you saw the pen picks coming up, there's a 19 and a 21-year-old in the full forward line, and you didn't used to make it into that Kilkenny team until you were 26 or 27, by which stage you'd had to prove yourself against Jackie Tyrrell in training, and unless you did that, or unless you survived against him, you weren't going to get your game. Before we just play this video from Tommy, I only realised it the other night. We were talking about the Galway game. Grode McInerney's 27. Why did it take him so long, or why did Galway take so long to realise that the solution to their problem at 6 has been there? Was he not ready for it? Were they not ready for him?
Well, he obviously wasn't ready for it. I mean, I'd love to say that I've seen him throughout his career, but the thing is, he wasn't put out there for us to see was he good enough or not. But I think the first year that he was really put out there was probably 2015, and it may not have been his debut, but it was the first time I noticed him. He played wing forward against Kilkenny in Nolan Park, and he was excellent. And I was like, this guy's a powerhouse. And I think he scored 3 from play that day. And pretty
6'4", 6'4" left half forward,
and built
right
accordingly.
Yeah,
he's a beast. Like, he could have been sent off in the second half. So Joe Canning was chasing back. I'm not 100% sure who it was, but he was chasing back and did a flick across the player. But Grode McInerney body checked your man, and he was already on a yellow. 100% should have gone and for a second yellow. Instead, the referee gave Joe Canning a yellow for the flick across, which was also merited. But I think it got Galway out of jail a little bit, especially at home there on that cabbage patch of a pitch.
Like, at first, it's all Ed Sheeran's fault.
Yeah, I was at one side of the pitch and I thought, oh, this pitch is absolutely lovely. And then someone said to me, walk over to the other side. And I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. Soft, yielding. I don't know how they hurled on it.
I want to play this, Brian Cody's reaction with Oisín afterwards.
Obviously, we have learned that the reality right now is that we're the standard. They're setting the standard, and it's a very, very high standard. I mean, physically they're a powerful team, like they're very, very strong physically, and that does help. It's a great advantage for them. But obviously they're top hurlers as well, and you know that's their team. But we have to concern ourselves with our team and try and get to the level and try and get the maximum rush upon them we have.
I think just 2 players scoring from play for you guys. What do you put that down to?
Well, I suppose the reality is we got a lot of frees, and I mean most of the frees obviously are situations where we had scoring opportunities that should have been scored from play and were prevented by a foul. So sometimes that can be misleading. Obviously, when you look back in the game and say you scored whatever you scored from play, I think we should be doing better than that, and we should be doing better than that. But I mean, games go like that, and you don't lose your life over it.
Yeah, he's not going to overreact to this, and maybe it just puts in context how much of a rebuilding job there is underway and required in Kilkenny.
Yeah, I mean, it says a lot that Richie Hogan wasn't even brought on despite half the attack being replaced. You'd think, why would you waste somebody? Like, you can't change who's in your 26, so maybe by Wednesday, whenever he named it, I'm sure Billy Lee can tell us all about naming the panels, but he named Richie Hogan, so he must have thought he's good for a few minutes.
Or he had a chance, maybe.
Yeah, and you think the need is greatest here because you're trailing.
Well, maybe on Wednesday they thought he had a chance, and then Thursday didn't respond well, and you're like,
and that's
okay,
a fair point.
He's
yeah.
stuck.
Yeah, but like, I mean,
when did Colin Fennelly come on?
He came on at half time,
right?
And I mean, it was pretty obvious that he was going to come on because they needed the ball to stick up front. And I mentioned that they only had 3 scoring chances from play. They absolutely struggled to create scoring chances at all. So most of their frees, and Brian mentioned them there, they were around between their own 65 and Galway's 45. They actually couldn't even get the ball inside there, and certainly win it. You saw the amount of ball that, for example, Pádraig Mannion coasted out with, that Dahi Burke came out with. Kilkenny just couldn't even get the ball inside the 45 and win it. If Wally Walsh wasn't winning it, nobody really was. Colin Fennelly came on, had almost no impact. A lot of the younger players had little impact. James Maher around midfield was pretty good. But after that, I mean, it's very hard to say who stood out for Kilkenny. And they could have, like, Galway should have won by 14 or 15 points. Because they just, like, they're so physically dominant. And, like, the other thing about Galway, when I say they're process driven, it's very hard to pick out too many lads who you'd say they were the star of the show. Everybody was really good. Nobody let the side down, and it's kind of Dublin-esque in the football.
And that's why you'd make them favourites to win the All-Ireland at this point. 100%. Very, very early on, but like they appear to have style of play, squad depth, and the motivation to do it.
Yeah, that's it. You often wonder, how does an All-Ireland champion get back and go again? And the thing that I thought is, okay, they need to beat Kilkenny and lay a marker down with them, because they've played them 11 times since 2009, beat them once in the Leinster final in 2012. And Kilkenny have beaten them on a couple of their most humiliating days. Like that 2015 All-Ireland final, when they were well ahead at half-time, on top all over the field, and then they capitulated. The 2015 Leinster final as well, Richie Hogan came on the second half, scored 5 points, turned it around.
Yeah.
Like, they badly needed to do Kilkenny, and they did in every way possible. Like, they out-hurled them, they out-physicaled them, if that's actually a term, it's very Americanised. But in every way possible, they just ran Kilkenny off the road.
But there is also a sense, though, that this is still kind of shadow boxing, particularly in Leinster, given it is going to be Kilkenny, Galway and Wexford that are going to be the top 3. That you would be very surprised if that wasn't the case. They could have to face each other again in the Leinster final. They could have to face each other again in an All-Ireland final. Who knows? I mean, it is early days to be saying right now that yesterday was a day when Galway had to lay down that marker. Well, laying down the marker is probably what they did, sorry, but in terms of like revenge for an All-Ireland final defeat, I mean, that's going a bit far, surely.
Yeah, well, they've kind of turned the tide more so, and it's interesting that if Liam Blanchfield hadn't have gotten away with a foul on Paddy Smith in the first day, then Dublin perhaps would have beaten Kilkenny, held on at the end, and now we'd be talking about can Kilkenny get into the top 3.
Yeah.
So that's how fine the margins are, and their game against Wexford is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, because Wexford obviously were absolutely amazing against Offaly at the weekend. I want to play you this. It's Tommy Walsh's 2 takeaways from Galway against Kilkenny.
Finally, the lessons learned for Galway and the lessons learned for Kilkenny out of today.
The lessons learned from Galway would not be from today. I would say you have to go back, I suppose, to the champions of old and say, we're All Ireland's won in June. No, they weren't. We're the one in May. No, they weren't. It's a long year. Now, what impresses me about this Galway team, last year when they were under pressure, they kept talking about this, we're just looking at the next game. We're not looking at the All-Ireland, we're not looking at the Leinster final, we're looking at the next game. So for Galway, they have to keep that mantra, because they'll go out in Wexford Park next week and it'll take on a total different life of its own. There'll be sweepers going around, they won't be getting the space they had probably here today. So for Galway, I'd say stick to that mantra of game on game. For Kilkenny, I suppose they'll just have to come up. Like, I think we see that Galway team, they're very much a dominator team in the air. They love that high ball, so maybe it's a case of trying to work around that maybe the next day if they were to meet again.
And these two could well meet again in the Leinster final, because Kilkenny play Wexford in 2 weeks' time in Nolan Park. That's going to be a belter. Tommy, a special day for you, your birthday today, and you even brought me some birthday cake.
I did, yeah. It was cooked, Marlies cooked it, or baked it, I should say, there yesterday. So brought up especially for you, Oisin.
And I can confirm it's good cake as well.
There you go. I want a picture of it though. I want to see a picture of it. Right, let's move on to Tipperary and Cork. As we were talking about earlier on, Ger and Eoin gave the last rites to Tipperary at half time. But like a comeback like that, and it seems to me players finding the right position, players finding fitness, I make Tipperary second favourites for the All-Ireland off the back of that.
I don't know if I'd go that far just yet, because in the first half they were desperate. You know, same as they were against Limerick, same as they were against Kilkenny in the league final. I think they're slowly mutating towards the team that makes most sense.
What changes happened? Because I saw, and I can totally understand, you're at the game and there's this surge in the second half, and it's hard to pinpoint exactly what the tactical brainwork going on in the background is, but they weren't the same. They had a different approach to Kilkenny's puck-outs, it seemed, to Cork's puck-outs in the second half.
Well, I think a lot of it is momentum too, and that's unquantifiable thing in hurling, that sometimes it's going against you and you don't know how to turn the tap off. I was at Galway Kilkenny, so I was just watching the game on my computer, grand stream and all that, so there's no issue there. But the standout changes that I saw were that Brendan Maher went wing back and Ronan Maher went midfield, and everybody was waxing lyrical about Ronan Maher midfield in the league. I'd actually like to see a half back line of Ronan Maher, Brendan Maher and Pádraig Maher in whatever formation you like, probably Paddy in the centre, because Brendan plays centre back for Burris Lee the whole time. And
put him in the centre and leave Paddy on the side, no?
Yeah, you can do that. I think any of the three, it's an exceptional half back line, and Brendan has a lot more pace than people probably realise. Really good reader of the game. So I think that if they play as the half back line and they're a bit more measured with their deliveries. Paddy is normally very measured with them. I think that gives Tip an unbelievable platform there as well. Bubbles came on.
That's what we finished with, was it?
Yeah. That's from half time on. That's what it was.
It seemed Brendan Maher was right. Paddy was in the middle, and was Ronan on the left?
No, he was midfield. Ronan was midfield.
Okay.
So Brendan was a left wing back, Paddy, and then Joe O'Dwyer, who's Bubbles' cousin, and then Bubbles coming on at half time for Bonner Maher, who he didn't look physically right. And on the Sunday game last night, they showed one incident where he was trying to chase back after somebody, and you're like, there's no way he's 100%. And I can see now why he was only brought on for 3 or 4 minutes against Limerick the first day. So like, fair enough. Bubbles came on and he set up, I think, something like 1-2 in the space of 10 minutes, and all of a sudden that Tip full forward line really started to flow. And you often wonder, how would you get all those, not luxury players, but Ferrari type classy players of Callan, Jason Ford, John McGrath, Noel McGrath and Bubbles all in the one forward line, and then obviously Dan McCormick as the worker. But like, they were exceptional together. But like, that was because the whole Tip team was, and they were working really hard. Like Seamus Callan, you wouldn't associate him with work rate, but the amount of times he chased people down was exceptional. And I wasn't really sure that would be his game. And I wonder, like, the fact that Jason Ford retained the number 14 shirt, the fact that he retained the freeze, is that like a little knock for him? And would he come out and, would he not be himself? Would he sulk or whatever? I don't think that's the way he'd be anyway, but he came out and showed that that's not the way I am. So from a Tipperary point of view, I think beforehand I was asked what did I think, and I'm not sure if I did it on the hurling show on Friday, but I said to a few people, Tip could win by 10 points, they could lose by 10 points. So they did that with either half pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, is that problem that you mentioned there, the Ferrari-shaped problem, is it a big problem? Is it one that you feel on the evidence of yesterday's second half that they can solve, and they have solved?
I don't think they've fully solved it, because I'm still not entirely sure that the full backline is the way it should be. Now, what I would like to see happen, and I've been saying it here all year, and it probably bore you, is I'd love if Michael Breen was full back throughout the league, because he's got the power and pace. Ger and Eoin, who I'm sure broke his heart to write off Tipperary. I mean, he has had no issues with Tipperary in the past. But like, if you had his pace in the full back line, and he did talk about Tip's lack of pace and bounce and all that, and to be fair, that's how it looked in the first half. Put him in the full back line, put Cathal Barrett in the full back line. I mean, it's not a very slow backline then, is it? And like, Billy McCarthy at midfield has brought in a lot of energy there. Yeah, I don't think they've got the perfect mix with Tip just yet, but they're moving towards that.
Yeah, it seems that the best 15 players for Tip isn't going to make the best team for Tip. Is that fair to say?
I mean, you can slowly... I think they are getting towards that, because you'd say Breen is in there and you'd say Barrett is in there.
But when it comes to the forwards...
But yesterday they probably are the most magical of Tipperary's forwards.
Yeah. But I think the forwards in a way matter less because eventually those players get game time together, they're all going to improve. Like once Callan gets fit, you've got one of the best hurlers in the country.
Yeah.
Alongside one of the players who's in best form, and once the two McGraths are playing the way they were in the second half.
Well, here's a big point. Sorry to jump in you there, but do you know, like having brothers in the team as well. If you think of, and I'm sure you love this, but you think of the O'Sheas with Kerry, the Brogans with...
My heart is growing fond.
Yeah, I can sense that, Harry. But like with Tipperary, you've got the Mahers there, and you've got the McGraths as well. And wasn't it Russell Crowe took over the South Sydney Rabbitohs back in 06, and 8 years later they won the grand final, and he talked about building a team on brothers, and he had 4 Burgess brothers, including Sam Burgess, who went to the World Cup and did so well for England that time as well. So I think that's important for us.
No, it was just kind of just to finish off that point, is that they might have too many round pegs, unbelievably talented round pegs, don't get me wrong, like unbelievable players, all-star calibre, but there's still square holes to be filled, basically.
Yeah, but again, I do think they're moving in the right direction. But like Cork, what a capitulation in the second half. Like they tried to work the ball out all the time, and I'm all about working the ball out. I don't think you turn good ball into 50-50 possession. And like in the second half, they overdid it so many times in the rain and just gifted Tipperary opportunities. And I think eventually they just kind of fell over and are lucky to even get a draw.
Speaking of brothers, here's Paddy Stapleton on Tip's performance yesterday. Oh no, wait! It's just a tweet. You'd have to say Pa Saint is the top analyst in the Stapleton family. You'll find your niche. Don't worry. Shane Saint. Well, Stapo.
Well, the only thing he can't debate is the fact that I'm the taller man, and that's about it.
We should do a power ranking of Stapleton pundits.
So we didn't mention Joe Canning, but what number is he on your list now?
He'd probably have slipped up a place yesterday for sure. Anyway, because. Come on, are you going to do this to me again? I'm going to get sandbagged once more. No, he was excellent. 4 points from play. Right up until Wally Walsh got that goal at the end. He'd scored more from both play and overall than Kilkenny in total. He was floating everywhere from centre forward. Really, really good performance. And part of it just a brilliant forward line.
I think as well, perhaps the best goalkeeper in the country is up for debate again after the Cork match.
For Anthony Nash, like fighter pilot reactions for that shot from Bubbles. Like
it's even better. It's like he's already gone. He's seen it. Like they did this thing they did this test where they got like one of the best batters in baseball to go up against a softball, and she bowls underarm obviously, and he couldn't hit it. He couldn't hit her fastball because he didn't have the trigger, the reaction to go, I see the shape of the arm and I know exactly how I'm going to hit it. But like what Nash did with that is world-class elite athlete reactions.
Yeah.
And he also is like driving the game forward in various stages too. Absolutely sensational.
The fact that he went across himself to save it, like when your hurley's already at this side and it comes to that side, it's just a bit of an extension, whereas there you have to turn and recalibrate your whole...
And to have the strength to, like, it was Bubbles, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Bubbles, yeah.
Break most of your hands.
It was actually a goalkeeping exhibition in that game yesterday. Like one that Hogan plucks from out of the sky when it was destined to go over the crossbar.
I'm sure he'd be a little bit disappointed with the Shane Kingston goal. Yeah. And I think actually that goal summed up Tipperary in the first half. That Shane Kingston was able to run into that narrow area there, get bounced by a tip defender. And like there was a few other defenders on the scene. They should have had him killed stone dead at that stage. But instead he was able to get a shot off, and I'm sure Brian Hogan will be disappointed. But he did pretty well, to be fair to him.
Shane, good stuff. Thanks very much for joining us today.
No problem.
Hurling show back on Friday.
12:30.
It's going to be a good one next week. And you were chatting to some local radio royalty yesterday, Brendan Hennessy and Willie Quinlan from KCLR, who were calling Carlow against Kildare.
I haven't listened back to your broadcast today, but I'd imagine it was fairly excited, let's just say.
Probably a little bit one-sided at times, but we got a bit frustrated in the first half. We felt a few decisions weren't going Carlow's way, but in fairness, it was a good old battle, but we believed in the team all the way, and in the end, we did go a little bit out of hand. Willie went so noisy, he nearly came out through the window, and we probably distorted right across the airwaves of Carlow Kilkenny, but it was a tremendous day for Carlow. I'm covering matches 23 years, and I don't think I've had a day as good. There were some great days last year, but today was absolutely fantastic. Well, last year when they beat Wexford, they scored 217 in the first round of Leinster. It was a massive win, and then they went on to play Dublin and Portlaoise. Now, while Carlow performed very well on the night. The end result was they only kicked 7 points, and people started to criticise the system. But to be fair, in the league they notched up some terrific scores. Against Louth, Willie and I both said if Carlow are going to defeat Kildare, they always will have to get a higher score, and 7 points was never going to do today. So they got the plan in action. They set out their stall, and they came here today, and you've seen what they clocked up on that scoreboard. I mean, they're going out here with 20 points in total, so it's fantastic. And to come here and do that, they've now turned another corner. While some people say Carlow are very defensive, I think if you score 2-14, there's nothing defensive about that. So now this is a team that I think everybody will fear playing. So it's Laois now, and next door neighbours. It's going to be good, and it's a fortnight's time, so we'll wait and see what happens.
And there goes the team bus off to wherever they have. They'll have a good night tonight, I'd say, Willie.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll enjoy tonight, and hope not tomorrow or the next day. I'm sure they'll be back. They'll be back training possibly Tuesday night. 2 weeks from what we hear. I think it's on the 10th, on Sunday the 10th in Croke Park. Really looking forward to it. I'm sure those guys are looking forward. What the thing about it is they're so positive, and he has them really believing in each other, believing in themselves. And if you have 30 guys believing in each other, it can only be very positive for Carlow.
Yeah, for sure. Just one last thing, actually. I just want to ask you about the style of play, because there will be people tonight who will say, "Oh, Carlow are very defensive. They lulled Kildare, or they brought Kildare down to their level," or stuff like that. Which, in actual fact, you look at what somebody like Cian O'Neill was saying in the Sunday game last week, when it was like the weaker counties need to get their house in order and get them to challenge the Dubs, not to allow for resources to be kind of divvied up between counties, so that they can, I suppose, financially dope themselves to the level where they can challenge with Dublin. It looks to me like Carlow have their house in order.
Yeah, but it's easy for Cian Whelan to say things like that. I mean, fellas from Carlow travel 25 miles to training. There's fellas in Dublin just come out of work and they're in Croke Park or Parnell Park in 5 minutes. There's plenty of money in Dublin. You mustn't forget there's only over 50,000 people in the population of Carlow. Their hurling team have gone to Division 1 for next year. Their footballers are now in a Leinster semi-final. They're promoted from Division 4. So I really think that Carlow are punching above their weight GAA wise. Not only in GAA wise, their soccer team are in the Oscar Traynor final next weekend as well. So the under 21 hurlers were brilliant. They had a big win yesterday. So Carlow have worked hard at grassroots level. Okay, their minors had a big defeat against they lost out heavily to Kildare minors during the week, but that happens at underage. But for the size of the county and what the people in Carlow are doing, this is massive. So if they believe that they can go to Croke Park and beat Laois, they will believe. And those fellas today the difference is, Willie has said it already, these Carlow fellas are not afraid of anybody. In the past, Carlow teams would be going out and they'd be nervous, we're playing Dublin, we're playing Kildare, and people are on a hiding to nothing here. These lads believe they can do it. And Turlough O'Brien actually said in a post-match interview after the defeat of Louth in Portlaoise, I said, Turlough, it's looking like Tullamore back here at the Portlaoise. He says, Brendan, I'll play that game in Newbridge. I don't care. So that will show you the confidence that the fellas have.
One last thing, one last one. We don't want to get into the Laois one yet. We won't ask you for a prediction about the Laois game. Where's the season going to end for Carlow? How far can people like you dare to dream?
Super 8s.
Super 8s?
Yeah, well, I mean, if we beat Laois in 2 weeks' time, and I think we can do that. I think it's very positive. You get into a Leinster final, if you win one more game, you're in the Super 8s. Why not? I was speaking to somebody yesterday and they were saying, will we get a good performance by the team tomorrow? And I said, that's not good anymore. We don't want performances anymore. We want to win. And you can see the players, everybody, the whole squad, they wanted to win today. And that's exactly what we did. We won by 7, could have won by 10. We won't talk about Kildare, whatever way they play. They just couldn't break us down. Louth couldn't break us down. We were very physical, we're very fit. We have pace in the right places.
We'll hear from the Carlow backroom team in a minute, but the breaking news is that the draw for the first round of the qualifiers is out, and frankly it's a bit disappointing. Here we go, round 1 of the 2018 qualifiers. Derry against Kildare, that will be in Celtic Park. Meath against Tyrone, presumably that'll be in Navan. That's in Navan, yeah. London against Louth in Ruislip. Wicklow against Cavan, presumably they won't refix that game from Ockram. That should be a bit of a barn burner, although Wicklow were obviously annihilated yesterday. So Offaly against Antrim in Tullamore for that one. That's a game that Offaly could relatively realistically target and hope that they might have a victory in. That'd be a brilliant achievement from Paul Rouse's perspective. Limerick against Mayo. That's about as good a draw as Mayo could have hoped for. Limerick are in absolute chaos at the moment, annihilated by the Clare footballers in the first round. A team broken, it seems, in spirit by their relationship with the county board as well. So that'll get Mayo up and running in that one. Westmeath against Armagh. Westmeath shorn of so many of their best players at the weekend. Again, also annihilated. So not the worst game from an Armagh perspective. There's enough of fear that they'll have gone down to Westmeath to be able to win that game. And then Wexford against Waterford, and you'd assume that local rivalry will add a little bit of spice to it.
Yeah, I've only got 2 home winners there really. I think Derry and Wexford will win, and then other than that, Tyrone, Louth, Cavan, Antrim, Mayo and Armagh are all going to win those games, I think. Although you can never call, if you manage to call a full round of the qualifiers correctly, you will be a rich man. So they will be my initial picks on that. After that round, then you've got the likes of Tip, Leisure, Carlow, Clare joining the mix. As long as Tyrone and Mayo don't meet, maybe Cavan you could throw into that, a triumvirate of kind of tough teams. We're not going to see any box office qualifier games this year.
Sure, there's a few hot balls in the draw. Stay away from the hot ones. That's Mayo and Tyrone, and pick one first.
It would be sensible. Like the Super 8 needs to be packed, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So
also, we want the best teams.
Of course we do.
Like, we want to see Tyrone and Mayo in the Super 8s.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being elitist.
Although ideally they could play each other in the round just before the Super 8s. That would be good.
The high stakes. Round 4 is always good.
Any of these games you want to see on TV? No.
What is the best game there? Maybe Meath Tyrone.
Is Meath Tyrone a good game anymore? Like,
I'm not saying it's a good game. I'm saying it's the best of a bad bunch.
Meath and Kildare are shambolic at the moment.
Yeah, Meath and Kildare are shambolic.
Meath should have beaten Donegal and Navan last year, says Tommy.
They should have, yeah.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Are we calling this the wrong thing? It's not called the Qualifiers anymore. It's like Football Championship Round 1 or something like that.
Is it? Yeah, I
think the name has been rebranded.
Like the compromise rules. Still the compromise rules, what? Right, are we doing... So let's go back to the Carlow Kildare game. Let's hear from Cian O'Neill first.
You know, I'm only interested in my guys, and I was disappointed there as we had practice with that in the league, you know. Monaghan, Tyrone, Donegal, and we actually played better and performed better 3 months ago against that system than we did today. And that's where the biggest disappointment is, that this wasn't a surprise to us. You know, we just didn't go out and execute what we said we would.
What did you say you would execute? What was the plan today?
I mean, it's against a team like that, we had to be patient because the 13 men, sometimes 14 behind the ball, we had to stretch them, you know, with width, with depth, looking for those pockets. And there weren't many because, as I said, they're very organised with that. You know, we had to take our chances when we got them. We had some, you know, terrible wides in the first half, and that hurt us because we were playing with the breeze, you know. So the things that we wanted to do and would have made a big difference, we just didn't execute them. That's, as I said, that's the biggest failing in any sport, when you don't perform as you've trained and as you say you're going to, you know.
Carlow didn't have a single wide today. Was it one of the most strangely perfect performances you've seen from them, or from any team we've really come up against?
Well, I mean, therein lies the story. You know, they shot 100% from play and from place balls. We came in at half time at 24% with the breeze. That's just not good enough. You know, that's not good enough at all. And even from play then, you know, we were still at 32% thereabouts. I mean, you know, at no level of sport is that acceptable. You know, to be shooting 3 from 10, doesn't matter who you're playing against or what the level is. And that's something, you know, we're just disgusted with. You know, it's just not good enough at this standard, and ultimately that's what cost us, you know.
That's Cian O'Neill, the Kildare manager there. Obviously was there and bore witness to some of the local journalists just talking at him.
Yeah.
With feverish anger.
Yeah, Tommy Callaghan from the Leinster Leader wasn't a happy man after kind of venting, and Cian O'Neill was just kind of like,
have to take it.
What can you say? He, in fairness to O'Neill, he stood up and he took the baiting, as they say, right afterwards from the local press, which are naturally going to be the most angry people. I think there was almost a bafflement around some of the Kildare backroom team from quick words afterwards. Just that Carlow 100% shooting was.
Yeah, can we stick that stat up again there? So Cian O'Neill obviously came out afterwards and said to you, and said to all of you guys that so Carlow scored 2 goals and 14 points from 16 shots. That's 100%. Even being mean and counting the first goal as a missed free that dropped short, they were at 94%. I have nothing close to this in the database. That's at Dovefowl on Twitter, and I don't know whoever that is screen grabbing that. I don't know why the hell you're not following Dovefowl. He's well worth
brilliant.
Follow.
It was unbelievable. It was just absolutely astonishing. But like, I made the point when chatting to Turlow after the game that the accuracy that Carlow play with isn't just manifest in that statistic, in their decision making in terms of putting the ball over the bar from sensible positions. It is to do with every single thing they do. They will not kick the ball if there is a 50-50 chance of their player making it. They will kick the ball if there's a 70-80% chance of their corner forward getting out in front of his man. They are a low risk team with clearly a high reward team at the moment. They like they have been prone to a lot of criticism over the last couple of months. I think it's undeserved. I think they've upped their game to a little bit this year, which is almost reminiscent, and I know it's kind of a strange comparison to make Donegal 2011 to 2012.
And they've only been criticised by Brodie. Now everybody else thinks it's amazing.
Oh, it is. It is completely amazing. It's fantastic, and it's not only Brodie though, is it? I mean, I
haven't seen anybody else criticise Carlow for like suddenly becoming a relevant team.
Yeah,
over the last couple of years,
it's going to be the fairy tale story a year for the second year running, no question.
The man in question in the backroom team, who's partly responsible for their newfound defensive solidity, is Stevie Poacher. He has also been chatting with Owen.
Stevie and Dara, how can you sum up that? We're about half an hour after the full-time whistle there. It's as special a moment as I've seen in any provincial ground around Ireland. It must be one of the most special moments in your GAA lives as well.
Yeah, listen, there's no doubt. I'll speak first and let this man speak to you. But listen, from my perspective, I'm obviously looking into the outside. You know, I was with Down for 10 years at underage level, right through to under 21, and you know, I came up here 2 years ago, and you know, we could sense that there was something growing, something building, but that today is on a different level. That's special, you know, and there's talk, and this is what sickens me, there's talk of B championships, like, and are you for real? Like, let's be honest, we're playing one of the top teams, so-called perceived top teams in the country, and they're a great side, they're a fantastic side with some fantastic footballers, but it does prove to you that if you're organised and you have a belief and you have a spirit, and that's one thing this group of players have, a fantastic spirit. Now, we've been criticised this year about being defensive, and there's been a few EJs fired, a few articles wrote about us and stuff like that. To be honest, I don't even read half them because I don't respect people who don't coach. So any pundits out there that don't coach, I've no respect for them because they don't understand the game. You know, and you look at 2-17 against Louth, 2-14 today against Kildare. You know, what's defensive about that? You know, you have to have a foundation and you have to build from your foundation. And if you don't have a foundation like building a house, your house will crumble. So we want our foundation in place last year, and this year was about developing our offensive end of things.
I know you're keen to get into the dressing room, but the one thing that's often tied strangely together is like defensive systems and bad football. You didn't have a single wide today.
Well, it's something we looked at after the league final with a few wides in the league final. We looked at our scoring efficiency. But look, speaking of the semi-final now, we're playing Laois now. I'm sure John Sugru, whatever, his management team are there today, and they're probably delighted to see Carlow winning because, you know, they probably see us as, you know, they're massive favourites. You know, we're going to be coming to the game again as massive underdogs. You know, all the pressure's on Laois now, you know, and we're just going to go and enjoy ourselves. Sure, we're enjoying ourselves. We're enjoying football. We're enjoying life. Look at that there today. You know, there's no pressure on us. You know, there's no pressure on us. You know?
Yeah. Stevie Poacher, a messianic figure in the backroom team.
Yeah, so much energy. You almost feel energised. I don't need any more coffee today after listening to that again. It was just about to speak to Dara Foley there, hence the kind of fumbled introduction there, and you just hear this big roar as we're about to start the interview, and it's like the Red Sea parting, and in walks Moses, but it's Stephen Poacher with a huge cheer as he's about to go into the dressing room, and he comes over and has a few words. They love him down there. He is, and this is an interesting thing, that he's actually the runner on the Carlow team. He's the man who goes on with the water bottle and actually gives the tactical instruction while giving the drink of water to the player, that he's not a runner. He is a tactical mind who goes in, and it's his ideas that are being executed by the players, so it makes sense for him to be the guy who's actually doing all the running. And you could hear a lot of abuse for him coming from the Kildare contingent of the support yesterday, like telling him to get off the pitch and stuff like that. And Poacher would just start geeing them up, and he'd get a massive reaction. He is loved down in Carlow, and like, I think huge credit has to go to Turlough O'Brien for the Leo Cullen-esque attitude to his team, where he's like, this guy can really contribute to the team. I'm going to park my ego for one moment here, and I'm going to collaborate with this guy who clearly thinks about football in a way that would benefit a county like Carlow. And I don't know, like, when I put it to Turlough yesterday that perhaps Carlow can be viewed as a defensive team, that's not a negative thing. Like, describing a team as having a very, very good defensive system, like Kildare had all the possession yesterday, that's not a negative thing. They did it so well. They lull you in to their half of the field and they break in a sensible way.
Kildare took Eoin O'Connor off after 29 minutes, having missed 1-3 from place balls at that point.
Yeah, he was not good yesterday. It was a bit of a disaster day.
Do you not let those players ride it out and fix it? Is that not the right thing to do, as opposed to, punishment substitution at that point?
Maybe. I'm not sure why he took the penalty, because he had missed at least one free at that point, and he hit the first one off the post and put the second one wide, and they were bad misses, and then they got the penalty, and it was him that was selected to take it. It was a poor effort, and maybe the confidence was shot at that point, and they should have selected somebody else to take it. I'm not sure. Daniel Flynn maybe, or Niall Kelly perhaps, should have stepped up and maybe buried that, and it would have been a very different game at that point. So yeah, his confidence, as you say, is going to be wrecked this morning. Whether or not he's going to start in that game in the qualifiers against Derry remains to be seen. It's a worrying start to his Kildare.
A bit of a pitch invasion as well at full time as well, and rightly so. It's O'Connor Park in Tullamore, it was funny, was Brendan Hennessy was like, Turlock said that he'd play that game in Newbridge, the implication being that nobody would ever want to play a game in Newbridge because the facilities aren't great, but these are amazing scenes, and like, it is a phenomenal achievement for Carlow to be at the level they're at, to be in a Leinster semi-final, and to be in a Leinster semi-final with a realistic chance of winning.
Yes, they have a real... I wonder, will the bookies actually make them favourite?
I don't think so. I think maybe they'll be 1 point underdogs.
Something like that. It's going to be very tight. It's a repeat of the Division 4 final, which is fantastic. It's a story in itself. Some people might say, that kind of sums Leinster's woes up in a nutshell right there, that two Division 4 teams contesting a semi-final in Cork Park. I think it's the opposite. I think it's a fantastic story. I think Carlow will win this game. I think Carlow have every chance of making the Super 8. You look at that qualifier draw, and if they manage to avoid Tyrone and Mayo in a round 4 qualifier, then they've got every chance of making the Super 8, which would be an incredible story. The only shame about yesterday is that it wasn't in Netwatch Cullen Park, or that the home games have kind of started to be being eradicated in these big Leinster games. Yeah, and that game is effectively a pick'em. Laois -1 is 6-5, Carlow +1 is 5-6, and they're reversed for the money line. So Laois are 6-5 favourites, 6-5 on favourites, Carlow 6-5. So the bookies haven't a clue what's going to happen, because it's going to be one of those games. Emmet Bolton, who obviously should have been part, it seems to most people who are watching Kildare football, should have been part of the setup at least. Somebody with his level of experience and calmness and commitment to the Kildare jersey was not involved in the squad yesterday. He was gone from the panel at the end of last year, but he did find time to speak with Eoin yesterday.
It is, I 100% agree with you. I think scientifically and strength and conditionally and all of that side of it, I've no doubt that they were as well prepared as they could have been. But I mean, some of the skill set there and the shot selection and things like that, it wasn't at the level that's required, and it wasn't at the level that shows for the ability of these players. I would have played with a lot of these guys over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and they are far more. They're extremely good footballers, and there's far more in them than what they produce today. But if you don't bring the intensity and the aggression, the physicality that Carlow showed today, you're going to be bet. I thought their transition out of defence was extremely poor. They were very slow coming up the pitch. We got up to Carlow's 45, and then maybe took 5, 6, 7 passes to get across to the far side. Nobody had the brains really to make a hard run through the middle to either bring a guy out of the way to make a gap for someone else, or to get a ball and to drive through the middle. Peter Kelly did it a few times. Owen Doyle did it as well. And there's a guy. Our best player is Owen Doyle. If I was looking at the game, you want your best player on the ball as much as possible. And you have him sweeping there. He's doing the job he's told to do, but he probably touched the ball maybe 4 or 5 times a half, when he is our best player. He got the ball at one stage in the first half, made 5 or 6 passes and finished it. I think we got a score or a free out of it. So guys like that you need on the ball. Paddy Brophy was wing forward. He's an excellent full forward. I don't know why he was playing out there. It was extremely disappointing. Now look, it's easy to blame a manager and it's easy to blame guys like that, but the players need to have a long hard look at themselves as well. They're going to have to regroup now. They can regroup. The ability is there to regroup, but I didn't see that performance coming. It was extremely disappointing.
Yeah, just a recap of the qualifiers draw if you're just joining us. Kildare are going to have to regroup with a trip to Celtic Park in Derry. The back of the Irish News today was saying that Derry felt okay with a 6-point defeat against Donegal in the Ulster Football Championship. So it's Derry against Kildare in Celtic Park. It's going to be Meath against Tyrone in Navan. It's London against Louth in Ruislip. It's Wicklow against Cavan. That game will be in Aughrim. It's Offaly against Antrim again in O'Connor Park in Tullamore. Limerick against Mayo. Mayo already kind of a little bit grimmed out by the prospect of going back to... Nathan was tweeting, in fact, about how hopefully things will be a bit quieter this time. But you were saying, in accuracy, they've actually been back to the Gaelic ground since.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they had a qualifier match in the Gaelic grounds last year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
come at me, Mayo people.
I don't think the last time Mayo played in the Gaelic grounds was the Mayo McDerby somehow.
There's not enough Mayo baiting on this show. When you consider that, there's a seam of Mayo people running through everything that Off the Ball does.
Yeah, I was speaking to a few Dublin fans last night.
Pissed off about the fact there's an over Mayo representation.
No, just speaking about their dislike for Mayo, I didn't realise Dublin people hated Mayo so much. I thought it was just us Kerry folk who just started to dislike them.
You're unifying around, coalescing.
It's weird, isn't it? It's
like those little bits of silver in Terminator 2 coming together. It's like, oh, hang on a second.
It's not like we've had to watch them in the Hogan stand longingly or anything.
Westmeath against Armour is the second last qualifier, and then Wexford against Waterford. It's not like we were all hoping that there would be one of those. Effectively, we were hoping that Mayo would play against Tyrone at this point, and we could all just look forward to that and it'd be bang. But this is kind of what the powers that be would much prefer, where Tyrone get through, Mayo get through. Like it's the whole way through.
This is a round one draw. Like, it's going to get better as rounds go on. A round two draw, once you throw Tip, Clare, Carlow or Laois in there, it'll be a lot more interesting games where you think an upset might be possible here or there. Like, you're going to have to throw, so it'll be, in the next round it'll be Tip, Clare, Tyrone, Mayo. Like, there will probably be a match between there. There's like a 50% chance there will be some combination of those four teams in one fixture in round two. That'll be better. Things will get better as the qualifiers go on. This is a round one draw.
Yeah, I know. It's just that, when there's a possibility of something amazing, you want it. That's the whole point. A reminder, OTB AM this morning is brought to you with Air, the home of Air Sport. Get amazing live sporting content for free with Air Broadband. A couple of quick things to bring you through in the newspapers again, or did we miss all the, are we done with the most of the GAA stuff?
Yeah, pretty much. The only other thing really is, as you mentioned, the football in the back pages of the newspapers. A lot of the papers going with Loris Karius and the likes, and Mo Salah and his shoulder.
Well, we'll come back to that in 1 minute because there was one last thing that I forgot to do there. Our local commentators the weekend obviously goes to the lads at KCLR, not just because they stopped to make time to speak with Owen afterwards. Here's a snippet of how the game was called on KCLR FM.
And there's a hand in there from the Kildare man, but it's gone to John Murphy. Look who's coming forward, Horse Lawler. He can wrap it up until Tullamore. Horse goes for the shot. It's a goal to the side. What a goal! Oh my word! Carlow blowing Kildare away. They've blown them away at Tullamore. The Kildare crowd are leaving. They thought they were playing no one today. They wrote us off on Twitter. They wrote them off everywhere. 214 to 110. This is Carlow's day. I hope you're enjoying this one.
Brendan Hennessy there, inimitable Brendan Hennessy, always responsible for one of my favourite bits of radio commentary of all time, from Leinster Toulouse all the way back in 2006. Was it when did Munster? 08. Munster won by beating Leinster in the semis. Yeah. So in the quarterfinals, Leinster are in Toulouse, and Leinster scored a try from inside their own 22. Hickey to Darcy to Hickey. Hickey runs like Linford Christie. It's sensational, and that was live on Newstalk back in the day. So we should talk a bit about Karius and the Gareth Bale stuff. My favourite Gareth Bale story is in the back of the Sun, where they managed somehow to establish the fact that, despite the fact that he'd scored an absolutely sensational goal, and then also the third goal, that Gareth Bale didn't get any love from Zinedine Zidane. No attaboy for 3 full hours after the game. They've got it, bicycle kick in the teeth is the headline. I'm like, what's that about? Oh, I'm going to read this now. And then I regret it instantly. Gareth Bale suffered an amazing snub from Zinedine Zidane after his Champions League final wonder goal. Did Zidane punch him in the face? Did he? The Real Madrid boss did not speak to his match winner for more than 3 hours after the victory over Liverpool.
But if that's true, it is still disgraceful, no? Nobody likes Gareth Bale in Madrid.
It's not disgraceful.
It is disgraceful. He's
doing interviews over here. He's doing interviews over here.
3 hours.
But I'm sure loads of people don't see each other. Bale goes off and finds his family and hangs out with them. Not everybody all together in the same room.
But they were on the same pitch. Zidane has to go over immediately and say, listen, Gareth, I'm sorry for...
I think you're an asshole, but good goal. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Good goal.
Did Bale not go over to him and go, look, boss, actually this all worked out really well. I was really fit and fresh in the final. And you not picking me loads because I wasn't playing very well and actually was coming back from injury was the right thing to do. No. Bale's like, look what I just did. And he's not talking to me.
But all his teammates really dislike him as well or something. I don't know. It was such a cold victory lap, wasn't it? It just seemed so dull, so underwhelming. Like Sergio Ramos with his stupid GoPro and his stupid head, and just an annoying person. And there's nothing to like about that Real Madrid team. They don't even like each other.
Yeah, they are the greatest team of this generation, the greatest team since the 1970s. It's weird to say that, but they're the best football team since the 1970s. They've won 3 European Cups in a row. It is a sensational achievement, unparalleled since the great teams of... they're better than the Milan team of the Arrigo Sacchi era. They are as good as any of the Bayern and Ajax teams, and they're getting close enough to probably being considered as good as the original Real Madrid team.
But I don't know why we aren't having the conversation about this Real Madrid team versus Pep's Barcelona team. There is an argument to be made there. Just because they've won 3 European Cups in a row is an unbelievable achievement, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But ultimately you can gauge things on things that aren't trophies sometimes.
Well, so pick them in a one-off game. Maybe you pick Pep's team and maybe Pep's team. But life isn't one-off games. Life is actually...
what they've achieved. They're a better team than Pep Guardiola because of doing 3 European Cups in a row. It is an astonishing achievement.
4 and 5 years.
It's amazing. Don't get me wrong, but are they a better team? Are they a better group of individuals? I don't think so.
Well, no, better group of individuals isn't a better team.
Are they a better team and a better group of individuals? I think Barcelona win on both counts.
I mean, there's a possibility that 5 minutes into that game, that one-off game that we've invented, that Sergio Ramos does something to break Leo Messi's ankle in a vaguely illegal but not illegal enough to get a red card kind of way, and that game's over.
Or maybe there's a vague possibility that Lionel Messi dribbles around Sergio Ramos, he trips over his own legs and breaks his own ankles.
I mean, maybe, but my point is
this is a fictitious game, so
my point is that I think Sergio Ramos and Real Madrid find a way to beat that Barcelona team.
No, they find a way to hurt Messi or something, but one Messi does not a Barcelona team make.
Okay, so they were pretty good. I mean, they were an excellent team.
But I just don't understand why that hasn't been a bigger part of this conversation. Why are we automatically comparing Real Madrid?
They've fundamentally underachieved. That Barcelona team, also wins a World Cup and a European Championships without their best player. But I don't know. I just think that... I also think that Karius had been a liability for Liverpool for so long that eventually these chickens come home to roost. You can't get away with having a dodgy goalkeeper. They had a dodgy goalkeeper and they thought they'd fixed it, but you see the difference that Ederson made to Manchester City over the course of the entire season. That's exactly what Liverpool need to do now, is find their equivalent of Ederson, whoever it is, for however long and however much they need to spend, whatever price, it's worth it. Because they lost the game because they had a crap goalkeeper.
Where does Loris Karius go from here?
I don't know, to the bench at Liverpool for a season or two, and then somebody else decides to take a punt and go, apart from that and the other howler every 3 or 4 games, you're a reasonable keeper. But
I hope we have a great moment of redemption for Loris Karius someday. I hope he wins the Champions League. I know that'll never happen, but I hope that he does it as a starting goalkeeper. And it's just because of just feeling sorry for the guy. That's the only reason why. No other reason. And maybe I shouldn't be feeling sorry for him. Maybe Liverpool had this coming to them. Maybe you're right, but I just can't help but feeling that Loris Karius, if hopefully karma isn't a bitch to him, and he actually turns things around. And I don't know. It's a sad sight. It was a very sad sight to see him all on his own on Saturday night.
And his teammates not going to him enough. That's been a narrative that was reported.
It's been a narrative, for sure. Like
Jamie Carragher at least went over to him. Why was Carragher on the sideline? Was he doing the game for somebody?
Must have been.
Or was he just hanging out?
I haven't a clue. Fair play to him for doing it. I think 1 or 2 players should have at least immediately gone to him and just comforted him. I don't think anybody was realistically saying that everybody needs to go over and make this all about Loris Karius. I mean, Gareth Bale being the first English speaker to actually go over to him and commiserate with him was a bit sad, wasn't it?
Well, it's classy move from Bale. A misunderstood guy.
Why do you hate Gareth Bale so much?
I don't, but this story where he's obviously leaked it, or somebody has leaked it, to go, Zidane didn't come over and say well done to me for 3 hours,
Yeah, well, that's Zidane's fault for not going over to him for 3 hours, is what I say. Imagine if you put yourself in Bale's shoes for a moment.
No.
Why?
Because he's just scored one of the greatest goals in the history of football.
Yeah.
And he's bitching and whining about not getting an attaboy from his manager. Enjoy the moment, be the bigger man, and you've literally just had a crowning moment in your career. You thought you've done this once before, and you thought, I can never top that, and then you go and you top it, and it's a thing of absolute stunning global beauty. The whole world is going to go, wow. But the story that they're writing about on the back page on the Monday morning afterwards is, this is a dickhead. Come on.
Well, I guess that was always going to be his end game. He's like, I need to get myself out of the club. I need to
Wait a week.
Do it when you're in power. Like I made this point last week, Gareth Bale is going to become irrelevant very quickly over the next couple of weeks once this World Cup starts. He is not in the World Cup. He is not going to be on the back pages of newspapers, except now he is.
No.
Because he's leaked the story.
That's actually what happens is that there's World Cup stories, and then there's a bit of a pause because there's just matches. But all the speculation has to happen, and Manchester United desperately need to be relevant over a season when the World Cup teams are all getting their sponsors' names on the back pages. And at that point, you have your pick of, well, maybe I'd like to go back and live in London. I also like Paris, Manchester. Well, it's such a city steeped in the traditions of world football. And Gareth Bale does one interview with one newspaper and it goes absolutely sensational in the build-up the week before the game start or at any point. You can easily manage the media narrative to be one of the big stories in the summer and the transfer saga of the summer. Easily done.
Or you could just score one of the greatest goals of all time and sell that nice story.
And ruin it by bitching about it afterwards.
But we don't know that he's leaked the story.
Where did that come from? Who else knows that Zidane didn't say hello to him for 3 hours?
The rest of the Real Madrid team.
They don't. No one is watching anybody else in that circumstance.
It's agent. It's all the agent's fault.
Maybe Cristiano Ronaldo is watching Gareth Bale to see how long is it before Zidane comes over here. Still hasn't done it. Well, because Ronaldo apparently also himself was like, well, I'm not sure if I'm going to stick around now. I might be leaving. And then immediately apologised and went, oh, actually, this isn't about me.
It is about you, Cristiano. It's always about you.
It's true. That's the one thing. I'll always be closing. Right, one thing that we didn't play you. Here is Kevin McStay laying down the law. So they had a big win against Leitrim, and they say that their next match is going to be in Hyde Park come hell or high water.
But that's out of the way now. We are in the Connacht final. We have the home venue. It'll be played in the Hyde. I have no doubt it will. And we'll certainly be turning up in the Hyde. I hope someone else is there to meet us on the day. And we'll be very, very absolute about that. Because, as I said, we're going to the Hyde on the 17th. Nowhere else. Bar, of course, Sligo bring us to Castlebar if it's their call. We can live with that, of course. But I expect that reason will prevail over the next 24, 48 hours. You know, the council don't need it. Roscommon GA definitely don't need any chaos around a fixture like this. And the national, you know, in a narrative where there's a lot of people putting their heads up and talking about the weaker counties not getting a fair shake. I just met the players, and you know, they're thrilled to be in another final. Like, this is their fourth Connacht final now in 3 years that we're getting ready for, and that's a great achievement for a bunch of young fellas. And they're so excited now about playing the first one in their young lives at home. And we had a long talk about this. We could only talk about it when we had Leitrim beaten. You'll understand. I had to respect their participation in the championship, unlike an awful lot of other people, unfortunately. And we are 100% united that the final's in the Hyde.
That's Club Rossi sent us in that video. They're obviously interested in making sure that the story gets out there, that there's a possibility it might be taken away from them.
That would be a bit of a disaster. They need this going in their favour. There is a huge chance that Roscommon can beat Galway yet again, because it's been all about Galway all summer. I think there's been a little bit of forgetfulness when it comes to the Roscommon side of things. A team promoted from Division 2 this year, this is not going to be a walkover for Galway just because they've made this surge up through the rankings that we perceive in Gaelic football. This is going to be a battle for Galway. If it goes to the Hyde, you make this a 2 point, you would give Galway a 2 point advantage, and that is it. It wouldn't be anywhere near a big upset for Roscommon to actually gazump them on the day. So this is huge for them. If they manage to get this game in the Hyde Park, my God is telling me Roscommon are getting automatic promotion to the Super 8.
Hey, well, to the Super 8. That's not exactly going to win that game. Right, so a quick question for you. You are obviously a Kerry man.
Where is this going?
You love Kerry.
I do love Kerry.
You're like, you bleed green and gold, and a bit of butter as well if we chop you in half.
Well, yeah.
Butter in your veins.
No, there is. There's a bit too much blood in my butter system.
And you're also a Game of Thrones fan.
Yes.
If you had to pick, right, if I was to offer you a Meyler and Brian interview, or say, I don't know, the Mountain from Game of Thrones, which of these two would be your preference?
Do I have to choose?
Have to choose. You have to pick one.
That's a tough one. I mean, if you could get both of those guys into the same studio in one day, now that would be a dream come true.
Well.
What?
Look what happened. This Tuesday and this Wednesday we have big interviews coming your way. I think Tuesday is going to be the Hound and Wednesday is going to be Meyler and Brian. I'm not sure. Maybe it's the other way around. The Hound's dead. The Mountain is not dead. He's alive.
Is the Hound? No, the Hound's not dead. The Hound came back in the last season.
Were they not all killed by the White Walker? By the
Ice Dragon?
Yeah.
No. Sure, they've only just got past the wall at this point. They all came back, remember?
Oh, okay.
Didn't they?
The Hound is not dead.
No. Yeah, I think you're wrong there.
All right. So we do have some big interviews coming your way over the next couple of days right here on OTB AM, live and in colour from 7:45. We're also going to speak to some other Kerry legends because Owen has swung that for us. So two of the greatest forwards of Kerry football history are going to join us in studio together. It will be the most Kerry that we've ever been in any part, but we might not put that until next week before the Munster football final is on, which is unfortunately going to be Kerry and Cork again. You're glad you wanted Cork to be good?
Like I just can't wait to hate Cork again, and it's starting to happen, Ger. I just saw a few tweets on Saturday night, people tweeting stuff like very encouraging performance from Cork. You know, it looks like we might not get hammered by Kerry. It's like I'm just starting to bubble up a little bit inside. I'm starting to think to myself, God, I would love it if we could hammer them again. I'm starting to feel just that little twinge of hatred towards Cork again, and that is a very positive thing. It's good to have you back, Cork.
As I said, amazing weekend of sport. I'll be talking about all of it on the radio show tonight from 7 o'clock. That's Off the Ball on News Talk. You can tune in at offtheball.com for live radio there. Of course, you can get all our podcasts on offtheball.com as well. And make sure you subscribe on youtube.com/offtheball for all our good stuff. We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck.
OTB AM. In association with Air. Get Air Sport free with Air Broadband.